Regarded as the deadliest American sniper of all time, Chris Kyle honed his skills over the course of 4 daring tours in Iraq, participating in every major operation of the war. But after his retirement from the military, he struggled to adjust back to civilian life, but through perseverance, he managed to rise above. Yet it only takes one person to strip everything away from you when they resort to the extreme. This is the story of Chris Kyle, better known as American Sniper. Christopher Scott Kyle was born on April 8, 1974, in Odessa, Texas. Raised by his parents Wayne and Deborah, along with his brother Jeff, on their cattle ranch. At the age of 8, Kyle received his first rifle, a 30-06 from his father. Shortly thereafter, he acquired a pump-action 12-gauge, using both firearms to hunt various local game. Following high school graduation, he pursued studies in ranch management at Tarleton State University. During his time there, he embraced the role of a professional bronco rider and ranch hand. Unfortunately, his career was cut short due to a severe arm injury, prompting him to abandon both his studies and riding at the age of 20. Facing uncertainty, at 24, Kyle initially considered joining the U.S. Marine Corps Special Operations. However, he was persuaded by a U.S. Navy recruiter to aim for the SEALs, leading him to enlist in the Navy. A year later, he completed basic training and additional training as an intelligence specialist, with his goal still set on becoming a SEAL. He was crushed when he was initially denied due to pins in his arm from his previous injuries, but after persisting, he received an invitation to attend basic underwater demolition SEAL training, more commonly known as BUDS. This grueling 24-week program is renowned for shaping the toughest warriors, testing their physical and mental limits in the pursuit of excellence. Having successfully completed the course, Kyle graduated in March 2001. Following this accomplishment, he underwent SEAL qualification training and was subsequently assigned to SEAL Team 3's sniper element. 2 years later, his unit received the news that they were deploying to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. During this deployment, his team provided rooftop security for Marines on the ground. During one of these Overwatch missions, a woman approached a group of Marines and pulled a grenade. Thanks to his quick reaction time and his 300 Win Mag, he was able to eliminate the threat. These harrowing acts continued throughout his career, with him dropping 2 insurgents with a single bullet that were riding together on a motorbike, making hits out to a mile away, and solely stopping an attack on a Marine combat outpost. Kyle considered himself a cross between a lawman and an executioner, with his unit painting images of the Punisher across their gear. Throughout his military career, Kyle deployed to Iraq 4 times, while his brother completed 2 deployments. During these deployments, he earned the reputation of being so deadly that the insurgents gave him the nickname of the Devil of Ramada, placing a $20,000 bounty on him, which would later increase to $80,000 as he continued to increase his kill count, getting him closer and closer to the title of the deadliest sniper in US military history. However, every time Kyle returned home from a deployment, the signs of PTSD began to manifest. The haunting memories of overseas tragedies, including the deaths of close friends, lingered alongside the challenges on the home front, with the improper diagnosis of his daughter with leukemia. The mere sight of roadside trash became a trigger for his fear of potential IEDs, and nightly episodes found him punching the air. Mentally, he was still entrenched in the war-torn landscape of Iraq. Despite these hardships, Kyle consistently prepared for re-enlistment upon returning home. However, his days as an operator came to an end in 2009 when, during his plans to re-enlist, his wife told him that if he stayed in the Navy, she was going to move to Oregon. Not wanting to lose his family, he ultimately made the painful decision to bid farewell to his career as a SEAL and leave the Navy. With the military now behind him, he faced difficulties deciding on what to do with his life. Through a friend, he was introduced to Kyle Bass, a wealthy real estate investor and hedge fund manager committed to assisting veterans build businesses. During their meeting, Bass asked Kyle what he wanted to do with his life, and he responded that he wanted to start a company that offered tactical training for civilians, law enforcement, and the military. With support from a handful of investors, Craft International was born. Thanks to Kyle's impressive resume, marketing the business proved effortless, leading to its rapid and exponential growth. Despite its success, he still yearned for the Navy, lacking a clear sense of purpose, leading him into a downward spiral dominated by alcohol. As he continued downwards, he would find himself behind bars after a particularly nasty bar fight, and on March 5, 2010, Kyle was charged with a DWI after crashing his truck into the fence of a residential property. A judge would dismiss the charges. Over time, he managed to improve his situation, and his compassionate side began to emerge as he initiated efforts to provide wounded veterans with exercise equipment and organize hunting trips for wounded warriors. However, violence seemed to have a way of finding him, as in the incident when 2 men attempted to carjack him in a gas station parking lot. He told the thieves that he needed to reach into the truck to grab his keys, secretly drawing his 1911 and from under his armpit, he fired 2 shots into each man, ending the situation. When police arrived on scene and ran his driver's license, they were presented with a phone number for the Department of Defense. Upon contacting the number, the operator explained that they were dealing with one of the most dangerous warriors in US history. The police determined the shooting was an act of self-defense. However, the story continues to be questioned to this day. Months later, Kyle would be contacted by an editor at HarperCollins inquiring if he had put any thought into writing a book. 2 years later, American Sniper hit store shelves, becoming an instant success, selling over 1.2 million copies. This catapulted him into the realm of a minor celebrity as he made appearances on TV shows, podcasts, and at conventions. Kyle found himself in a significantly improved state of life and was adjusting well to civilian life. A year after the book's release, while dropping his kids off at school, he was approached by a woman named Jody Ruth. She explained that her 25-year-old former Marine son was struggling with a variety of mental issues, including PTSD, from his deployments to Iraq and Haiti, and asked if he could help. Unbeknownst to Kyle, Jody's son, Eddie Routh, had been in and out of mental hospitals due to threatening his own life and others. This included an altercation where he punched his father and attempted to retrieve a rifle from his gun safe, threatening to blow his brains out. Kyle assured Jody, saying, "I'm going to do everything I can to help your son." On the morning of February 2nd, 2013, following his son's baseball game, Kyle, along with his close friend, Chad Littlefield, loaded his truck with various firearms and went to pick up Eddie for a trip to the shooting range. They arrived at Rough Creek Lodge Resort, where Kyle had helped design the mile-long range and reserved it for 1 hour. 5 minutes before their scheduled time was up, a range officer noticed their live fire flag was still raised. Driving over to their position, he noticed Kyle's truck was missing, but all of his gear was still there. As he drew closer, his heart sank upon discovering the lifeless body of Littlefield and Kyle. Despite attempts to administer CPR, both men had suffered multiple gunshot wounds. Police and EMS descended on the scene, with law enforcement initiating a search for Kyle's truck. Eddie, after the murders, drove to Taco Bell in Kyle's truck, then visited his sister's house and told her what he had done. He then left the house, prompting his sister to call 911, describing him as crazy and psychotic. Police traced him to his home, and upon initial confrontation, he began speaking of demons and the end of the world.
Would be you coming out with your hands so we can talk about this thing.
Is this about like hell walking on earth right now?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but
Hell's walking on earth with us right now.
Telling you, walk up to the house and talk to him because they have the same stuff.
Fleeing in the truck, Eddie engaged in a brief chase on the freeway, ultimately crashing into a police car. Eddie was charged with 2 counts of capital murder and held on a $3 million bond. The police interrogation footage is haunting.
Me too. Let me get trying to find out more about the world that I've been living in too. I think I was in this deep when I was looking at the computer screens when I was in Iraq. I never thought it was. Sure. I mean, you can look at, yeah, when you're looking at the screen, it doesn't make sense to you at the time, but then you really realize what's happening, like, it's astonishing, talking to Chris, they keep talking to Chris in my world, and seems like every time I talk to another man named Chris, I just get sent to another man named Chris. I think about talking to the wolf, to the one in the sky. Or the ones in the sky are the ones that fly, the pigs in the world. They can truly say they're pigs.
What you do today is wrong, right? You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the families?
Yeah, I'm just sorry for what I've done.
Eddie's trial took place on February 11th, 2015. His defense argued that he was insane at the time of the murders, while the prosecution argued he was faking his schizophrenia and was actually suffering from paranoid personality disorder that was made worse by drug use. Dr. Michael Arambula testified that he did not believe Eddie was schizophrenic and was not insane at the time of the murders because he was intoxicated. A sheriff's deputy also testified that Eddie had told him, quote, "I was just riding in the back seat of the truck and nobody would talk to me. They were just taking me to the range, so I shot them. I feel bad about it. but they wouldn't talk to me. I'm sure they forgive me. Eddie was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He currently resides in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Ramsey Unit in Brazoria County. A service was conducted for Kyle at the Cowboys Stadium, and the following day he was laid to rest. Thousands of people, waving American flags, lined Interstate 35 to witness the procession and pay their respects. An old Navy SEAL tradition involves placing their trident pin into the coffin of a fallen comrade. Over 100 SEALs inserted their tridents into his coffin, with some reporting it was the most they had ever seen. Littlefield was buried 4 days prior. To this day, his final kill count remains a subject of debate, but the most recent number confirmed by the Pentagon stands at 150, surpassing the previous record of 109, solidifying Chris Kyle's status as America's deadliest sniper.